Right then, so it is effectively saying, basically, right, that these are all the Attorney Generals of England, right? So this is a list of Attorney Generals. Here I've put a key which basically says that. I've put a letter X, okay? These are Attorney Generals who were not members of the House of Lords while they were Attorney General, okay? I put a letter X, and then I put a letter Y for the ones who were members of the House of Lords while they were Attorney General, okay? Now, when we start here from the 13th century in Parliament, remember, Parliament is one chamber, right? Until we get to here, to this, around this time of Richard Aldeburgh, right? So, through all this time, it's one single chamber, although you have got the peers' privileges, which are to their persons, and then you've got Parliament privileges, which apply to anyone attending Parliament, but it's one chamber. You can have no Parliament at all, but the peers have all still got their privilege, even if there's no Parliament. Now, all of these names here, there isn't that much information about these people on the internet. So, it's not that important until we get to here. Okay? Now, and also, once we get to here now, this is when Parliament splits into two chambers. I found some information for this John Gaunt. I think he was a peer, but still, all these people here, there's not that much information about them. But we get information here. So, for the 1400s, the 15th century, right? Through the 1400s, we've actually got established two chambers. So the changes were like separated in the 1300s and starting to form. And then, so there's absolutely no peer as Attorney General all through the 1400s in any of the parliaments. If they get a peerage, it's after they served as Attorney General, right? And then the same for the 1600s here, right? Now, in the 1400s and 1500s, in the 1600s, right? Now, there was this Henry Hobart here. I thought this Henry Hobart was a peer while serving as Attorney General for 2 years. But, as we find out down here, when I get to this information here, it says Henry Hobart, it says he was knighted in 1603 at the coronation of King James I. Hobart became Attorney General of Court of Wards and Libraries 2 years later and was famously involved in the government's response to the Gunpowder Plot, right? His influence at court was reflected in the baronetcy bestowed on him in 1611. He served briefly as Chancellor to Henry Frederick, Prince of Wales, before the Prince's early death from typhoid in 1612, and was appointed Chief Justice of Common Pleas in 1613, and Chancellor and Keeper of the Seal after. So it looks like he went to Chancellor in 1611. He was knighted 1603. I don't think that he was Attorney General at the same time as Chancellor, because then he went to Chief Justice of Common Pleas the year after. So there's some information that would make it look like that he was serving as Attorney General while he was a baronet, but I don't think that he was, because that information that I've just got there says otherwise. So I'm going to edit this now, because I think that the Wikipedia is wrong, and I think that this needs to be an X, because it seems like I don't think he was Attorney General at the same time, because he went to those other positions really quickly, right? So that's one off. So really, if we're not going to include when there was a single chamber, I'm not getting all that information. There's this John of Gaunt here and some others, but it's definitely clear that once we've got these two chambers, where it's completely solid all the way through the 1400s and the 1500s, right? Now, you'll notice I've got one letter Y here, all the rest are X's. So this is Geoffrey Palmer. Now this is the Restoration, right? This is the after Oliver Cromwell and the restoration of the crown, right? So why was Geoffrey Palmer standing out as an Attorney General who was a peer, when after it goes straight back to X's again and we don't have any? What was the reason? And then if we scroll down here, we've got all X's, all through the 1700s. And remember, right, let's not forget, around here, we don't even have a proper prime minister until around the 1720s, right? So I'm going to write that there, prime minister. We've actually only just got a proper prime minister position at that point. So the position of Attorney General is actually older than Prime Minister. It's probably almost as old as actually the Speaker, really. Would you appoint a Baron as the Prime Minister or the Speaker of Parliament, And I think that would answer the question. You would say, can the Speaker of Parliament be a peer? No. Can the Prime Minister? No. Right, well, I think that answers the question on the same basis, but because he's meant to be the legal person for the nation, mainly for the citizens and the commons, the Lords don't need an Attorney General, because they've got like the Law Lords, and there's a conflict of interest of privilege, of which there's an entire book about, which is the whole basis for this argument. But anyway, right, so we don't even have the proper Prime Minister until the 1720s. And look, all the way through here, there aren't any. And now we get some photographs, and we've got Liberals, Conservatives, all the way through, all X's, and there's about 220 of these people through the entire history of England, and we've only really got, since Parliament split into two houses, one person, and that's in the Restoration. And we've all X's until here. Now, this is when Tony Blair gets into government, and at first he has this John Morris, MP for Aberafan, as Attorney General, but then he puts this Gareth Williams in, who actually is Baron Williams, which, now this is, we're looking at like, I think this is like 95% or 95% of Attorney Generals have not been peers. So it's now what we get. Then we get this Peter Goldsmith as well. So there's Gareth Williams and Peter Goldsmith, both Labour. And then we get Patricia Scotland, that's 3 Labour, none of these Conservatives, and now we've got, and again, all these other Conservatives, and then we've got Baron Hermer. So that's Labour. So Labour have just suddenly started. Why aren't the Tories doing it? Why aren't the Conservatives doing it? You know, Labour, 1, 2, 3, 4, all in succession as well. What obsession has Labour Party got with having the Attorney... They want the Attorney General to be a member of the House of Lords. And 3 in a row. What importance do Labour put on that? But yet none of the Conservative Party seem to be that bothered about it. So what is the strange obsession? Now, historically, so after that correction I just did, from when the House of Commons and Lords split up into 2 houses, and I know there's some information that I haven't filled in yet and got, but generally the percentage, it's quite clear. Now, what was the story with Geoffrey Palmer then, and the Restoration? So it says here that Geoffrey Palmer, right, with the monarch's restoration in 1660, Palmer's fortunes dramatically improved. This is because he'd kind of like been on... He got put in prison a few times by the parliamentarians, right? Because like he was a royalist. Charles II, who had returned to England as king, appointed Palmer as Attorney General on May 31st, 1660, shortly after his return, right? Because he was loyal to the crown, and obviously the king's just got back in, and he's very angry and annoyed. And he knows that he's loyal, right? And he was previously an MP, right? He did serve as in some legal positions. The new position placed Palmer at the centre of many high-profile legal proceedings in his first month as Attorney General. Obviously, because they're doing loads of actions against the followers of Cromwell, right? Palmer was also knighted and made a baronet, adding to his status as one of the king's closest legal advisors. One of his most significant roles as Attorney General was leading the prosecution of the regicides, individuals involved in the execution of Charles. Palmer pursued the regicides with zeal, as Charles II's government sought to make examples of those who had played a role in the king's death. This period of Palmer's career highlighted his loyalty to the restored monarchy and underscored his commitment to upholding the king's authority. So there's actually a reason then, right? So this entire history of England, right, minus the modern Labour Party, right? Even the Conservatives, right? Even the Conservatives haven't had Lords as Attorney General. The whole history of the entire Parliament, right? Except for this Geoffrey Palmer. So that is because of the Restoration. It's because of the Restoration. And it's because of he wanted someone loyal, trustworthy, and because the Commons had it was the parliamentarians, the Commons, who had taken over the country, right? The Royals wanted... He put him into the House of Lords, but he wanted him to be Attorney General to make sure that they basically prosecuted all these Cromwell followers, right? So so there was a reason. There was a particular explicit reason, right? And if we go back, there wasn't even a proper Prime Minister position until the 1720s, which was after that, right? There wasn't even a proper Prime Minister of England until way after that. And then, the Parliament splits into 2 chambers in the early 1300s. Could probably do with getting this data, but a lot of these people are knights. I don't know what's happening with this John of Gaunt. it might turn out that he doesn't actually say too much about him being Attorney General, but the rest of them, it's more or less a one-off. It's more or less a one-off, right? So what is going on with the Labour Party then? Well, they got Patricia Scotland was probably she was the first woman to do it, but why have her as a peer? She wasn't the first woman and peer, but this Gareth Williams was under Tony Blair and Peter Goldsmith, and it was Gordon Brown who put Baroness Scotland in. And I thought it was because of the Constitutional Reform Act, but I don't think it was, because the Constitutional Reform Act was 2005, and he put this Gareth Williams in 2001. And none of the Conservatives have done it, oddly enough. Why the Labour Party? Are the Labour Party really more the secret royalists than the Conservatives, you know? That's the question. You know, after Tony Blair did it, why didn't the Conservatives start doing it? That's the question. I don't think that he can do it because of the conflict of privileges are separate from the Lords and the Commons, or they're meant to be. And the Attorney General's meant to represent the privileges of the subjects, but we're not getting them represented at all. They're trying to erase them from history and pretend they don't exist. They're even trying to do with their own privileges and get rid of their own privileges. Maybe it's got something to do with that, you know, undermining privileges, but Margaret Thatcher started doing that as well. And she wasn't, you know, even Margaret Thatcher didn't have a woman female Attorney General or Chief Justice, quite interestingly. So it was a one-off anomaly to do with the Restoration. And that was even before they had a proper Prime Minister. And they had two chambers there. So what is it with the Labour Party? Why are the Labour Party doing it? Well, Tony Blair, I think Tony Blair's done a lot of things unlawful, like the judicial oath has been contravened against through some legal things that he's done. Deals for justice, and, you know, so deals with in respect to persons' individual conscience. Bargains for justice, negotiated justice, not justice through applied law and evidence. So this is it. So I can sort of delete this Henry Hobart. Well, I might just leave it there, the information. So it's Geoffrey Palmer's the anomaly, mainly because of it definitely to do with the Restoration and the Civil War. Specifically to do with that. So what is going on with the Labour Party? Because the Labour Party, since John Morris is the exception, right? John Morris, but then once Tony Blair gets going, once he gets into this Gareth Williams, and then Peter Goldsmith, and then Patricia Scotland, another one, 3 in succession. No one in history has done that. They didn't even have 3 in succession at the Restoration. They didn't even do that at the Restoration. So what is Labour's strange obsession with these peerage Attorney Generals? And then the Conservatives do not do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 Attorney Generals after Tony Blair. And then Keir Starmer goes and does it. What is the purpose of that? Quite interestingly. I can work out the percentage because I got it wrong last time. I think there were 219. I thought you divide 219 by 100 to get your percentage. Or is it 100 divided by 219? 100 I think it's 100 divided by 219. And then you times it by... So, Tony Blair got 4. Sorry, the Labour had got 4, not Tony Blair. And then the other 5... 2.2%. Is that right? 2.2%. 2.2% of all Attorney Generals have been baronets. Something around that percentage, which is extremely low. And if it wasn't for the Restoration, they wouldn't have been the other anomaly. And it's if you take away the statistics of the Labour Party, it's literally, it happened once after both chambers were properly well established and running. It happened once because of Oliver Cromwell taking over the country in the Restoration, right? And you're not supposed to do it because of separate privileges of either house. Are not supposed to cross over or get involved with each other, really. There is a reason to it.